WeatherBrains episode number 571, the year ender. We're wrapping up 2016, putting a bow on top of the package and getting ready to welcome 2017. The pre-show, this is that wonderful time where we share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and occasionally say very outrageous things. And for those that are watching at some point, this is actually a Wednesday night special. We are doing this show on Wednesday, December 21st, and that we have a number of vacations coming up next week, including yours truly. So in order to, and also Greg Carbon, who is always our guest, he is so kind to do this. It worked better for him to do it tonight, so we're just going to knock this sucker out tonight. We're going to find out the top 10 weather events of 2016. I can't wait. And if you've never heard Greg do this at a conference, it's even better when he's got the big PowerPoint going, and he's got, I love hearing Greg at the conferences doing these things. So we got, and obviously we're going to have some of the crew out, but I think we've got some maybe in that typically would not be able to stay the whole time. I have a funny feeling Kevin and Aubrey just might be in for the whole show, Brian. So
yeah, I think so. But we're missing Nate, who's traveling, and Bill, who's doing family activities.
Yeah, we got some folks that are obviously out for Christmas. It's a very busy week, but Kevin will be here, I think. Aubrey will be here. Maybe Rick will be here. And Rick has handed down his coal through the interwebs here. I was doing fine, and all of a sudden now I've got his cold. I mean, but at least we don't have the problem our morning meteorologist here has.
Yes.
Projectile vomiting.
I was using that I sure hope that hand sanitizer works, because I was using it like every other time I walked in.
I read somewhere where this stuff's actually a scam and it doesn't really do anything, but it just makes you feel better about putting it on there, and it kind of smells funny, and you're just thinking that the germs are going away now. I'm getting rid of these germs. I won't get sick. I won't get sick. I won't get sick. So who knows?
Let's hope so, because
yeah, because and again, I just got a cold. I am not in the projectile vomiting business, but if it happens to go down the tubes, and if I get into that tonight, that's going to be for some great live television here on the old show. We haven't had that on the show before. So, Brian, have you ever seen anybody projectile vomiting?
Not on television.
I did one time. We were doing a live shot in downtown Birmingham, and this was the night the O.J. Simpson car chase. Remember that back in the 90s? And so the 10 o'clock news didn't get on until way after midnight. And it was an event called City Stages, which was a big music festival.
I know it well.
There's a lot of drinking sometimes, not always, but sometimes those things. And
most of the time.
So I was walking back to the car with another news person, or member of the news staff there. And that's the first time I'd ever seen projectile vomiting. It was like at 1:30 a.m. On a city street. And it was just a really special way to end your day.
Yeah. Oh, God, yes. Ouch.
Anyway. So, yeah, we're going to let's invite Greg here. I need to get to, Bill is not here, and typically he does this. He's the guest booking officer.
Yeah, I wish Bill would tell us how he does some of these things. I have no idea how to get the URL of the Hangout.
I see it. Yeah, I don't know how you do it. They changed where we're not doing it through Hangouts. We're doing this thing through YouTube now. And, so I've just invited Greg, and we have people watching us already. I'm seeing more of these in the wild, these WeatherBrains hoodies.
I've seen a couple of tweets today of people saying they got theirs. That's great.
Yeah.
I didn't get a hoodie. I got a shirt. I'm more of a shirt guy than I am a hoodie guy.
I might have a touch of fever. I don't want to get chills where you say, ooh, you ever had chills,
Oh, yes. No matter what you do, you can't get warmed up. Ugh, that's gross.
Yeah, so I've got the TV lights on, and I got the hoodie on. Of course, I'll probably just get hot. But my wife just sent me a note that DirecTV's not working.
Oh, that's not good.
I'll fix it when I get back. She watches most of the stuff over these set-top boxes now.
Yeah.
The Apple TV, almost everything you can see on the Direct TV. If you pay for it, you can see it on the Apple TV. So it's not the loss that it would once be.
Right.
In fact, UAB plays a basketball game, and I can probably see it on the Direct TV app. They've got a pretty decent little mobile app.
Great.
You can get all those channels on there. So, but they're in Texas tonight.
UAB's in Texas? Wow.
Play the University of Texas, the Longhorns.
The Longhorns, yes. Hook 'em horns.
You ever been to Austin, Texas, Brian?
I have. It's actually, Austin is one of the cities I really like.
I was there last for an AMS annual meeting, and I want to say that was 2013. That's about 4 years ago.
I haven't been back there in quite some time.
It's very eclectic. It doesn't feel like the classic Texas city. It's more like San Francisco or hello, Siri.
Well, it's the capital.
Yeah, but it's a very interesting place. Very, very nice place. So,
yes.
So we don't have Greg. Now he's I think he's at a family gathering, so he's actually pulling away from the family gathering to do this. I feel guilty. I told him we'll make this the shortest WeatherBrains ever. And I just invited him, and we remember, the higher the IQ, the harder it is to get people on the show. We've had these PhDs.
I noticed you're saying that with the only two people here are you and me.
Yeah, boy, we got on this show just like that. So that speaks volumes.
I hope we don't resemble that remark.
Yeah, I'm.
Boy, it's great for your boss to tell you that you really have a low IQ. That really builds your esteem up, doesn't it?
But I'm in there with you.
I know.
I know. All right. So
how many cut-ins did you do today? 3?
No. I did a 7:55. Yeah, I guess 3. 7:55,
8:30,
8:30, and 8:55. Greg, thanks for doing this. We owe you one, man.
Oh, no problem. Good evening.
I feel like we're pulling you away from your family time. I mean, I feel bad, so we'll make this we'll zip it along here.
Oh, we just did the Santa Claus thing downstairs, and I sent my dad and in-laws. I said I got to get on WeatherBrains, so I'll see you soon.
Yeah, and wow. I want to wish you good luck in collecting whatever it is James just said we owed you, Greg.
Yeah,
good luck collecting on that debt.
Nope, don't owe me anything.
And by the way, next year we'll fly Brian to your family gathering because Brian is Santa Claus. We have never seen Brian and Santa in the same room. So,
I'm working on it too, Brian.
Yeah. So
yeah, you are working on it.
Yeah.
So the good thing about this is that we are not tied to television. Now they will put this on television Monday night of next week at 8:30 Central in my market. But typically when we're doing this on Monday night, we have to wait until the television joins us. But because we're recording this, we don't have to do that. So we can get this sucker started. So
excellent.
And I think Kevin Selly should be here, and Aubrey Urbanowitz in Harrisonburg should be here. We might want to wait just a couple of minutes to get them in here. Nate is traveling tonight, and Bill Murray is got some function where he couldn't pull away. And Rick Smith, Rick might be working tonight. You remember your days back in Norman, Greg?
Oh, well, very well. Yeah, not so long ago.
So, Greg, how's the new job?
It's busy. I actually been in many places recently. Was down in Tuscaloosa at the National Water Center a week ago.
And you didn't come see us?
I didn't even have a car. Got driven right down there and spent 3 days there in the basement of the operations center, what will be an operations center someday, discussing what they're going to do. And,
all right.
So I did that. Got an upcoming trip out to the Glenn Gerberg Weather Summit out in Breckenridge, second week of January. The job is interesting. There's a lot that WPC does, and I'm trying to get a grip, even after 9 months of being there, on everything that they do. They're involved in a lot of different aspects of the weather enterprise, and the National Weather.
Hey, Greg, let me interrupt you. We want this on the show here.
Sure.
Let's spare you from doing it twice, because I'm going to ask you the same thing here in just a minute, because I want to hear all this on the show. If you don't mind sharing it.
That's fine. Yep.
So let's just get this thing started here. Let's roll it. And our others can join in progress. So let's do channel 1 and channel 2. And here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is WeatherBrains, episode number 571. It's the year ender. Where did the time go? We're wrapping up the year 2016 tonight. The show is scheduled here for Monday, December 26th. But Brian, should we let them in on the little secret?
Sure.
We're recording the show on Wednesday, December 21st. Because of vacations and everything else, and we could get Greg tonight. But this is a fun show. This is a little different. We don't do all the things we typically do here. We kind of give the floor over to one of the legends in the weather enterprise, a man that needs no introduction, a man that for years and years was at the Storm Prediction Center as the WCM. Brian, you know all about being a WCM.
Yes, I do.
What does a WCM do anyway? In 5 words.
I did 5 words. Holy mackerel.
You just burned 4 right there. You got one left.
Basically, WCM deals with folks essentially outside the office. And in Greg's case, being a WCM at a national center, he dealt with a lot of people way away from his office.
But Greg Carbon, thanks a lot for taking the time to join us. This is my favorite. In any conference where you are doing this, I love it. The energy, the fun, it's just great where you look back on the year. But for those that don't know, Greg has moved on from the Storm Prediction Center. And I can't believe it's been, how many months? Did you say 9?
Almost 9 months now. Yeah.
Wow. It took him 9 months to find a replacement.
Yeah. Which is actually pretty good. That's actually record speed.
I can understand that.
Yeah, we're about to have an MIC opening down here in our market. We figure it might be 2022 before we get one. So
a little scary, yeah.
Yeah, but no, Greg was at the SPC for such a long time, and goodness, if you see that WCM page, that's all Greg's work. And now Patrick Marsh will be taking over the reins there. But Greg, you have moved on to WPC, the Weather Prediction Center. So tell us about this new job. We called you the Grand Poopah of the Weather Service the other day. What do you do up there?
Well, the WCM job at SPC was a great job, and Patrick's going to do an amazing job there for SPC. I can't wait to see what he comes up with in the months and years ahead. WPC, I'm Chief of Forecast Operations, which is another dream job, looking at the Forecast Operations branch, 34 meteorologists forecasting everything from tropical precipitation, working closely with the Hurricane Center on precipitation amounts for landfalling tropical systems, to heavy snow, freezing rain, and heavy precipitation, excessive rainfall, and flooding across the country. Even the medium range, looking out over the Pacific and looking at weather systems evolving over the Pacific and coming to affect the continental United States over the days to come. So the range of meteorological responsibility at WPC is far greater than I even thought when I first went there. They cover a lot of different aspects of weather and meteorology, and it's truly an exciting place to work. It's in very close proximity to Weather Service headquarters down in Silver Spring, which brings a whole host of other interesting challenges because you're that close to the power center for the National Weather Service. So you're involved in a lot of policy and bureaucratic discussions on where the Weather Service is going. And we can spend a whole show talking about that, but that's not my job. My job is to forecast the weather and to stick with operations, and that's what I plan to do in the years ahead.
And you were telling us that you spent some time at the National Water Center in Tuscaloosa, Alabama recently. Where's that whole thing going, Greg? What are they going to be doing operationally in 5 or 10 years?
Well, that's a great question. And I'm on a team with other folks from around the Weather Service, folks like Bill Lawrence from the River Forecast Center in Tulsa, and other folks that are involved in hydrology. So this is a really interesting area. I've not done a lot of work in hydrology and river and stream flow forecasting before. Probably the flagship product that has been essentially implemented this year is the National Water Model. So for the first time, we have predictive capability as far as what streams and rivers will be doing over the whole U.S. And if you haven't seen output from this model, it's pretty incredible. It's very detailed. Couple million points of information as to river and stream flow across the United States. And so that national water model will be evaluated in its capability of informing the potential for flooding and flash flooding across the country. What the Water Center does with that will be the role that they will take, and it's still yet to be seen how that will be implemented. The Operations Center there is very impressive. If you haven't been down there, it's pretty neat. They've got a wall of video monitors, they've got workstations, they've got capabilities ready to be spun up, ready to be stood up, and hopefully we'll have about 10 forecasters being hired in the next year to man that Operations Center and evaluate the water model for its predictive capabilities for flooding across the country.
And I promise we're not going to bombard you with questions because we're going to go through the top events of the year. But where's the computing power coming from? That has to be a staggering amount of power needed to run that model with all those points.
It's basically the same computing power we're using in our other models right now. The system is operational on the Weather Service supercomputer, and so it's being run just alongside all of the other models we're running, the GFS model and the NAM and the short-range ensemble forecasts and the GFS ensemble system. The water model is one of those models that's being run, and it's actually being run hourly. The input is coming from the high-res rapid refresh precipitation. That's going in there hourly. It's updating hourly, and it actually even updates out into the medium range. They've got capabilities where they're using GFS forecasts to force the water model out a week ahead of time. So a lot of questions. How good is this going to be? We're going to find out.
And what is your title at WPC, Greg?
Chief of Forecast Operations.
That sounds pretty cool. And so NCEP doesn't exist anymore, right?
Oh, no, it does. NCEP actually is the umbrella agency, essentially, over SPC, the Hurricane Center, WPC,
the
Weather Center.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, James, when you look at NCEP centers, there's an awful lot of C's in all the names.
Yeah. Well, and then, yeah.
AWC, CPC, EMC, NCO, NHC, OPC, SPC, SWPC, and WPC.
Yeah, and the NCEP Central Operations, which is essentially responsible for running the computer model capability, and EMC, the Environmental Modeling Center, are based there in College Park. So kind of the centroid of NCEP operations is in College Park, but there are satellite centers like SPC and the Hurricane Center.
Right. Okay, and we'll do another show and talk about it. This is fascinating to me because some of us down here, the grunts and operational weather, we lose track of all the letters in the operations center. But anyway, yeah. So let's do it. So what we're going to do is go back in time, the year 2016, and Greg's going to run through this list. And if you've never heard him do this in person, it's fantastic. But it's still just as good on WeatherBrains. So Greg, the floor belongs to you.
All right, thanks, James, and we'll get started here with National Weather Association meeting back in Norfolk in September when I did events number 1 through 8, and then I left 9 and 10 open, and I told Bill Murray at the time that we would work on events number 9 and 10 for the show tonight. So the rules here are these are my meteorological memories of the past year. They don't necessarily correlate with events of any. I'm not rating these, not ranking them in any way. They're just interesting weather events that I've decided to highlight in this annual talk. So I'll start with number 1. Was the uncharacteristic wet and wild close actually to 2015 before moving into 2016, but certainly had impacts into the beginning of the 2016. And massive rainfall across the midsection of the country and widespread severe weather as well. I worked actually last December 26, one of my last shifts at the SPC, on the day that incredibly deep cyclone developed across West Texas, resulting in widespread severe weather and actual killer tornadoes in the Dallas area during the evening hours after dark. This was an incredibly powerful system that brought blizzard conditions to parts of West Texas and eastern New Mexico, and deadly tornadoes to parts of Texas. And then all that moisture that streamed north ahead of that system resulted in widespread, deadly, and long-term flooding that lasted into the beginning of 2016. So that was memory number one. A couple of highlights from that as well. It was the deadliest December on record, a number of fatalities occurring earlier in the month and then right after Christmas, unfortunately. 26 fatalities during December 2015 made it the deadliest December for tornadoes in over 60 years of record. So really very active December. And unfortunately, it looks like we're ramping up. Although I'm not connected as much with severe, it looks like the current situation is some severe weather coming up for Christmas.
I was about to say, your old buddies at SPC, they've already got a day 5 15% circle drawn for Oklahoma City and Tulsa on Christmas Day. So here we go.
I saw that. So December 2015, again, it's uncharacteristic that I put a prior year's event into the beginning of 2016, but it was something to be noted. And it was warm, wet, and wild. The wettest December on record. Very warm east of the Rockies and into the Mid-Atlantic, unlike what we're probably going to see at the end of this month. But we are starting to warm up now. Number two.
Before you go to number two, is that's also the system? That's the tornado in Garland was one of the ones that was in that, right?
Yeah,
because right. I don't know if you. I'm sure you know Tim Marshall, but that tornado basically exposed some building techniques.
Oh yes, right.
I'm speaking specifically of the school in which they built walls, roof, and everything, but the walls weren't attached to anything. That's
brother. Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Just
construction techniques revealed that the tornado went through. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Not good.
Yes.
So number two, I can't leave this one out. Okay, now we're into 2016. It was really the only major snowstorm, but it was as a doozy along the East Coast. Incredible nor'easter that occurred across the Mid-Atlantic on January 22nd through the 24th and basically paralyzed the Mid-Atlantic. I wish I was there last year. I missed this one, but hopefully there'll be one coming up soon enough.
So you're wishing for a nor'easter to be buried in snow at your place up there? Wow.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm in Vermont right now. They've got snow on the ground, but not that much. But
okay.
I love snow. So WPC is also a nice fit for me for snowfall because I really do enjoy snowstorms. But this one buried some records. I mean, Allentown, Pennsylvania set a new record. Baltimore, Maryland, Harrisburg, PA, JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark all set new all-time snowfall records with this event. Didn't really get up into New England. It kind of cut off right around the metropolis there in New York and Long Island, and really was the only true snowstorm of the winter. The rest of the winter was pretty quiet after that. And the winter ended up being the warmest and wettest overall since the major El Niño winter or La Niña winter of 1997-98. So that was memory number two. Number three is kind of an odd one.
We love the odd ones. They're the best.
Okay, I had to work this one in because it had potential to be much more significant than it ended up being. But this was the Carnival cruise ship caught, the Anthem of the Seas, caught in a rapidly deepening cyclone, a bomb of a cyclone just off the North Carolina coast on February 7th. And massive waves with the system tossed the ship. You probably saw some of the YouTube videos, and even there's some goofy videos out there putting the ship in front of a large artificial wave. But the captain received a lot of, it looked kind of strange that the captain would take the ship right into the middle of a deepening cyclone with hurricane force winds. But boy, the folks that were on that ship certainly got the ride of their lives.
Now, was this the one where they claimed that the thing wasn't forecast well?
Right, or that they claimed that maybe it was under forecast a bit. But I mean, there's 24 or 36-hour surface charts from the Ocean Prediction Center showing rapidly deepening hurricane force low, essentially along the path of where the Carnival cruise ship was going. And so this one, maybe in the past you could argue this is quite a surprise. I've got a loop that I put together of the max wind speeds showing 75, 80 knots of wind 24, 36 hours in advance. And the ship happened to go right into the middle of this very intense and very tight cyclonic storm developing just off of Cape Fear, North Carolina. Remarkably, no major problems, some damage to the ship, but they managed to pass through the event generally unharmed. And just like I said, a lot of folks got the ride of their life on that one. So that was my memory number 3.
I think the captain was looking at the crap app on his phone, Brian.
Probably. Yeah. I was going to say, makes you wonder what the captain of a ship that has, and I don't know what the population of that ship was, but a couple of thousand. 5,000. That's right. Okay. Wondering what the captain's doing, not looking at weather information, but.
Well, it was, that they knew that there was intense winds and waves possible, but they were fairly confident that the ship could fare well. Now they did it again through another. I'm not sure which one it was. One of the major hurricanes early on was Hermine. I think they may have sailed through. I think it was close to the center of that this year.
As long as it wasn't the same captain.
I don't know, but they have a lot of confidence in that ship, which is several stories tall and can house 5,000. That's a city, really. And so it was just an interesting event, given the forecasts were incredibly accurate. But they went ahead and sailed what they thought would be fine. So we'll leave it at that. I want to be called up by the attorneys later and ask questions. We'll just leave it at that.
We blame it all on Brian. Don't worry, Greg. Okay. It's all Brian's fault.
So number 4 is the ENSO and severe tornado watches. I did a quick analysis of how the ENSO phase, which we were in an El Nino, relatively strong El Nino last January, February, and March. And there's a correlation to El Nino during the cool season going into spring, and the relationship it has with severe weather, perhaps tempering severe weather activity somewhat. And so I did a number of analyses with respect to severe thunderstorm and tornado watch days in January, February, and March, and how in the past those watch days, the anomaly of watch days was affected by strong El Nino or strong La Nina. And interestingly enough, the overall pattern that you would expect with an El Nino in place was supported quite well for January. Well below normal watch counts across the lower Mississippi Valley, parts of the Tennessee Valley, and up into the Ohio Valley. But slightly above normal watch counts this past January 2016 across the Gulf Coast region and also Florida. So whenever we see an El Nino in the winter months of January or so, we expect that there's a slightly greater possibility of severe storms in Florida. And we've seen a number of significant tornado outbreaks during El Ninos of the past in January and February in Florida. But what's interesting is by February, we're still in an El Nino, and the watch counts in a normal El Nino year, when we look at the climatology for watches, would suggest well below normal activity again in those areas from the lower Mississippi Valley, parts of the southern parts of the Midwest, Ohio Valley, areas that don't see a lot of severe weather anyway in February, but should see even less in an El Nino year. February of 2016, though, didn't quite follow that pattern. Well above normal watch activity across portions of Alabama, Mississippi, up into areas of western Tennessee and Kentucky, and even up along the mid-Atlantic coast, extremely unusual severe weather, killer tornado in Virginia in February 2016. So didn't quite match the El Ninos of the past as we moved into February. And March kind of continued that trend, above normal severe weather activity across portions of Texas, parts of the Arklatex on into the lower mid-Mississippi Valley, and even up into parts of Illinois in the Ohio Valley, where you would normally see in an El Nino year, but below normal watches, you actually saw slightly above normal in March 2016. So don't always bet that an El Nino brings below normal severe weather activity in parts of the interior Southeast and above normal activity in Florida. Although
I struggle.
Florida-
I struggle with that correlation, Greg. I've always struggled with that INSO correlation. In what you're saying, just kind of confirms that it doesn't always work the way you think it's going to work.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
There's always devils in the details that don't work out quite the way you expect. Although I would say that Florida, probably of all the places, January and February saw above normal number of watches issued across Florida. But thank goodness not much in the way of widespread severe weather outbreaks like we've seen in the past. So that was just an interesting analysis. Number 5 was actually a personal event that I remembered since I was moving in March, or moving out to Washington from Norman during the spring. And I was very concerned about selling my house given severe weather season, right? You never know if you're going to be able to sell the house after a hailstorm goes through and damages your roof. And luckily enough, I had the roof replaced. The first time in 20 years that I needed the roof replaced on the house the year before I sold it. So I had a new roof on the house, and I put it on the market. And what the heck happens come April? Some really nasty supercells come really close to the house, and they're dropping 10 egg-sized hail. Did I say a key word there or something?
No. That means it's very significant. It always happens when you're trying to sell a house. I'm telling you.
Yep.
Yep.
And so what I did for the talk is I ran a number of summary maps of the radar reflectivity of the radar hail potential. And there were a number of very strong tracks that went right across my neighborhood, right across my house, of tennis ball, hen egg-sized hail. And I'm sitting in Washington, and I'm watching these storms on radar going, oh, my goodness, I'm not going to be able to get that. I'm going to have to replace the roof. But luckily, nothing too significant during April. And then May comes along, still haven't sold the place, and still very worried about the prospect of severe storms. And they seem to be all around, but luckily I was able to get the house sold before the end of May, and things went just fine. So got out of Norman.
There you go. Show title.
And managed to move to Oklahoma. Managed to move to Maryland, where on May 1st I experienced an incredible supercell right in downtown College Park. I dropped small hail and torrential rain, flooding rain. So it seemed like I was followed by one of those storms. Number 6 was just a review of the May tornadoes. There were 215 tornadoes during the month of May 2016. That's about 50 tornadoes below the 25-year average, so not quite as active as it might otherwise be. Put together a heat map showing the activity where you typically expect it: Texas, Oklahoma, especially western Kansas. And we had a total path length on those tornadoes of about 525 miles. And that's about 70% of normal for May back to 1990. The longest May track was a 25-mile EF4 tornado that passed across portions of northeast Kansas on May 25th. Property losses are about 21 million. That's well below normal. And amazingly, it's about 4% of the normal May property loss over the past 25 years. So May was a quiet May overall, but there were several pretty significant tornadoes that were observed by chasers. One of them was on May 9th down near just near Pauls Valley, Oklahoma. There were just a remarkably photogenic tornado with a tremendous amount of damage produced on May 9th. And then there was another one up in northeast Kansas on May 25th. That was the long track tornado up near Topeka. And we talked about that event as memory number 6, right? Yeah. So we're on to number.
Brian's being photobombed back there. This is great.
Let's see. What are you doing, Brian? Oh, I'm being photobombed. I'm being photobombed. Hi,
Greg's
Lisa.
being photobombed.
That was my wife.
Okay.
Making an appearance. She actually was. This was the first time this year that she was able to attend my year in review talk in Norfolk. So that was fun. That was exciting, and she actually stayed for the whole thing.
Wow. That's
wow.
All right, we're on to number 7. So now I'm at WPC, right? So now it's all about flash flooding, and it seems like I got there, and it was every other week we had some significant heavy rainfall event occurring somewhere in the country. a number of them in Texas and Louisiana, March and April. But the one that really struck pretty significantly in June was my number 7 memory, and that's the West Virginia flash flood. Greenbrier County received the bulk of the rainfall. This was a really difficult forecast to make, too, because it came in several waves, and really was about the third. If you were looking at it from a forecaster's perspective, you didn't know at any time whether you had finished up with the rainfall or whether there was going to be another round. And essentially, there were about 3 to 4 rounds of extremely heavy rain, and resulted in rapid stream rises and about 6 to 7 inches of rain that caused dramatic flooding on the rivers there around Greenbrier, and unfortunately, widespread damage and flooding, and a number of fatalities in West Virginia during late June. So that was memory number 7. We're going to stick with the heavy rain events for number 8 and talk about the Louisiana flooding. This was in early August, second week of August. This very weak low pressure system basically moved from east to west, from the Big Bend of Florida westward along the Gulf Coast, just inland from the Gulf. And every day it kind of had this, asymmetric pattern to it, somewhat warm core, but continued to move westward until it moved over southern Louisiana and just let loose with incredible amounts of rainfall. Baton Rouge, over 17 inches of rain, a daily record of almost a foot of rain in one day. And just non-ending extreme precipitation over a relatively confined geographic area, but resulting in dramatic flooding across that area, similar to a tropical or landfalling tropical system.
Hey, Greg, what can we do to help better, bring awareness of these things? It had no name, and before you know it, that was a total disaster. That's one of these social science questions, but we got to do something to better communicate the risk for these type setups.
Yeah, I agree completely, James. I think that, people do like to focus on names or, identify some system moving toward them and better prepare. One of the things we've struggled with at WPC, and we had just implemented the ability to issue a excessive rainfall outlook at the high risk category 2 days in advance. We've just done that. Actually, they decided they were going to do that after the forecast for Joaquin, the rainfall associated with Joaquin the year before. They said, we have the forecast capability to talk about the high risk for excessive deadly rainfall amounts at least 2 days in advance. Why don't we allow ourselves to put that confidence in our forecasts? And actually, this was the first day 2 high risk event that WPC issued. Unfortunately, flooding, I've learned, I kind of knew this going into it, just doesn't get the attention that tornadoes do. And I talked to Ken Graham down there in Slidell at the Weather Service Forecast Office, and he said, SPC puts a moderate risk for severe weather across us, and it gets all this attention 2 days out. We got a high risk for excessive rainfall. People don't seem to register the same amount of attention to that type of forecast. So we've got work to do. I think what we need to be saying, when you see a high risk for excessive rainfall, this means, a deadly event is quite possible, and people need to pay attention and take appropriate action to avoid the dangers from flooding. And we just got to keep, pushing that as best we can.
I think a lot of that's on our back. I thought we all in the broadcasting sector did a very poor job. I'm not so sure we communicated that very effectively, and we have to do better. And again, we have to train our mind. The tornadoes, that's the sexy stuff. People are going to watch, they're going to pay attention most of the time. But for the flooding, it's flooding. And we have to change our mindset, I think, to change the public's mindset. And we just have to be more serious. We have to be better communicators. We have to communicate the risk. And I agree. We've all got work to do, all.
And this is by far not the first time. I think back on the El Reno tornado event in Oklahoma City, and how all the attention was on the tornado. And of course, that was an incredibly violent tornado event. But more people died in Oklahoma City that night from flash flooding than any tornado. And there was a very good signal in that event that extreme rainfall was going to occur somewhere in Oklahoma 3 days out. And all the attention was on the tornado. Not to say that the tornado isn't a significant threat, but you're absolutely right. We need to reframe the threat or reframe the hazard, so to speak, and pay attention to the potential that flooding has to really alter people's lives in a bad way, and start talking about that more often when, the guidance is pretty good on this stuff, especially for the extreme events. The West Virginia event, in hindsight, was actually well forecast days out by a number of numerical models. Maybe not exactly in the right spot, but certainly a signal that you were going to see rainfall of epic proportions. And when you start,
we should mention too, Greg, that Aubrey Urbanowitz has joined us, and she is next door to West Virginia. And you recall that event very well, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. I was actually probably within about 10 minutes from going on air. I had already talked to our producers, our web guy, had a text alert ready, and I was prepared to go wall-to-wall coverage because the guy you see behind me was at a conference in Mississippi State. So I was flying solo, and when it finally dropped down about a county south of ours, I thought, okay, I'm okay right now. I could get my graphics and forecasts done. And it really wasn't until all the shows were done when I realized what had actually happened. It was about 6:45, close to 7, where I had a chance to really see that line, when it moved south, it stopped.
Yeah, that one was, it was, again, a bit of a sneak attack there. And I think sometimes you're talking about basins too, that the actual river basin or stream basin it could be extremely susceptible to flooding, and we're not all that aware of that. So our situational awareness needs to be improved, and this is where the National Water Model may actually become quite important in giving us insight into what basins are particularly vulnerable to this type of rainfall. Some basins can handle 3 to 4 inches over a couple of hours. Other basins cannot. And as an example, another event that I didn't note in here, but I'm going to be talking about next month out in Breckenridge, is the Ellicott City flood in July up in Maryland, right up my backyard. And that basin is particularly vulnerable to heavy rainfall. So where some rainfall can occur over some basins and not have much of an impact, but if you're in the wrong place and you get that type of rainfall, you've got devastating consequences. So we need to do a lot more in this area, and that's one of the real focal points of WPC's work, is to try to identify that risk and quantify it.
Hey, James, maybe we could get Shep Smith to say something atrocious about the flooding.
Yeah, we'll get. I'm sure this is on Greg's list here in a minute, so I know it's on his list.
But and to end up number 8 with the Louisiana floods, what's really quite remarkable is I think we're about an inch away, 1 inch of rainfall at Baton Rouge away from an all-time record rainfall. Or, I think they've had rainier years, but they're about an inch away from an all-time record. I was tracking this up through August, but I haven't updated my plot. I know they're at the very edge of the distribution on the high side for rainfall, even though it's been unusually dry in recent months. And so we'll have to see if they break their all-time record, which I think is something around 88 or 89 inches. Although there is a record from the 1800s of well over 100 inches in Baton Rouge, but I guess it's not an official record at this point. So Baton Rouge can get a lot of rain. They certainly had a lot back in August. And these things are not good, especially with the added population and focus and sprawl development that occurs in some of those areas. Flood control is a problem, and that brings us to number 9. So this is my new event that I decided to add another one, and this is Hurricane Matthew, which in some ways has similarities to what we just talked about. There were a lot of people surprised by 18 inches of rain in southeast North Carolina. But Hurricane Matthew left a path of destruction basically from Haiti up through the east coast of Florida, and then brushed the South Carolina coast, bringing devastation there. But it was really the rainfall, I think, in North Carolina that caused most of the damage and long-term flooding in that area. It took a long time for rivers to drop down, and 40 deaths, I think, in the U.S. Due to the primarily the flooding from Hurricane Matthew. So that was event number 9.
And that's the Shep Smith storm, wasn't it, Brian?
Yeah, that's the one where he said
what did he say?
Everybody in Florida is going to die or something.
Yeah, you're all going to die. And he was like off his meds or something. I mean, I appreciate the urgency in trying to communicate a message, but there's kind of a line you cross where instead of being bold and serious, you look like a madman. And I just thought he crossed that line. I don't know what happened with that. But again, it's the same problem, Greg, with that flooding up there. Yep. You know, everybody was focused on Florida and the hurricane, and that's the wind. Right.
Yep.
That's the stuff.
Wind and surge, and not that surge isn't a deadly thing for some of the more significant landfalling hurricanes, but it was pretty clear this hurricane was not going to make a direct hit. And that wind may be a problem, but really, I think it became increasingly evident as we went forward that it was going to be the rain, and it was going to be inland flooding from this event that was going to kill people and be the largest hazard. But all the focus often seems to be on wind or surge and the tornado threat. And it seems like flooding kind of drops down. It's just it's not that sexy, so to speak, as far as getting the word out or talking about the damage or devastation that can occur. So we all have to, remember that as we go forward with these events and try to explain, 5 inches of rain or 10 inches of rain or 15 inches of rain over the next couple of days is really going to cause the biggest hurt for people in the wrong place, and that's what you need to be paying attention to. So that was certainly the case with Matthew.
Yeah. So we got one more,
One more to go. Number 10 here. And how are we doing for time?
You take your time. We're good. We're on your dime here. We're good.
That's good. Number 10 really wasn't much of a competition here, and it's interesting considering the contrast from what we just talked about with the rain. You didn't have to go too far west from those areas that were pummeled with the heavy rain to see how bad the drought was. And of course, you guys know, living right in the heart of it, right across parts of Alabama, Mississippi, and Western Tennessee, incredibly dry conditions for many months on end, and then unfortunately resulting in a devastating wildfire in Gatlinburg, which was set, but certainly wouldn't have been anywhere near as severe had it not been for the long time drought that had occurred across those areas. And I think I have a graphic I called up here to look at the statewide maximum temperature rank. So what happens in cases of drought, it's kind of a feedback, right? You have dry soil, so your temperatures don't drop very much at night. You don't have a lot of moisture around, and you can heat up very readily during the day. And so you get into this positive feedback loop. And for the months of September through November of 2016, Mississippi and Alabama set their all-time high temperature records for the state. And of course, we saw the incredible fires that occurred in Gatlinburg in November as a result of some of that drought. So that was memory number 10. A bit different from all the heavy rain events, but no less devastating across those areas. And that summarizes my meteorological memories for 2016. And I think it's my 14th year of doing these. And somebody asked recently if I was going to continue to do them now that I've moved on. I actually started these before I was the WCM of SPC. So they really weren't a function of being the WCM of SPC. So I'm going to hang on to them a little while longer before I pass the baton. My wife calls it my shtick. So
yeah, exactly. No, you can never pad it. This is what we all look forward to. So, but every year I ask the same question. So look into your crystal ball and what do you see in 2017, Greg?
Oh my goodness. Well, you could probably be pretty much guaranteed there'll be a number of extreme rainfall events in there again. Like I said, since coming to WPC, it's quite remarkable how every few weeks we see another very heavy rainfall. Now, it's slowed up. November wasn't so bad, but we do see a tendency for more widespread heavy rain over parts of the country. Hopefully, in some parts of the country, they need that, right? And California is making a bit of a rebound after their long-term drought, and we certainly need it there in the South. So heavy rain and flooding will continue to be a memory, a major event. I always try to get a nor'easter in to the talk because that's what I grew up with, enjoying nor'easters. But so far, it's been pretty quiet, although we're only into December. So maybe the pattern will change here and we'll see something in February or March. I don't know. And then severe weather, that never grows old. So we will, every year people would ask, when I was WCM of SPC, they would be asking come February, what's the season look like coming up? And I would say, well, by April, there will be tornadoes.
Bingo. That's the sexy stuff. Now, how many years have we been below average with tornadoes in this country? 5?
Let's see. I think 2011 was the last year with well above normal. Of course, we all remember that well, and that was an incredible year. 12, 13, 14, and 15 we're on our fifth year, I think, of well below normal tornado activity.
We all know it's not going to stay that way forever.
No, it won't. No.
So that's something else to think about.
We in the Southeast are entering 2017 on the order of 12 to 17 inches below normal for 2016. So the drought's going to continue to be an issue unless we get some fairly significant rains. I'm not looking for a big rain event to flood people out, but we need to have some good events frequently. Yeah,
and it'll turn around eventually. It always does, but it's going to take some time.
Yeah, and there's two kind of droughts. You have short-term and long-term, and what we hope is this is not going to be a long-term drought that goes on for years like California's had.
Right.
And it's a little harder for that to happen here with the Gulf of Mexico in the backyard, but we've had them before. Back in the 80s, we had a stretch, so we're hoping that we get some decent rain here. Well, Greg, thank you for spending some time away from your family and doing this every year. It's always one of our highlights, and we thank you for your work, and hope you have a great new year in your new position at WPC. And we will look forward to about a year from now. We'll be talking about the top 10 of 2017.
Yep, sounds good, James. And thanks for having me on, and I'll look forward to it. And
okay,
I have to interrupt and ask, how do you like the East Coast?
Oh, I love the East Coast. I like being back where there's
being back.
And 20 years in Oklahoma, I tell people that was fine. Had a great time there. Raised my boys grew up there, and it turned out well. But it was time to move back east and try something different. So no regrets. Do miss the folks in Oklahoma. They do a fine job. But in this day and age, we can stay in touch and keep in touch on things. And I hopefully get back there to Norman once in a while and get to see them. And hopefully, actually, I've seen more people from Norman come out to College Park in Maryland since I've been there. So the business, how the business is. We're all family. We'll keep in touch.
Yeah.
It's a small world.
Any truth to the rumor when Louis retires, you're going to get the main job at the Weather Service?
Oh, there's no truth. That is not a forecast that will verify, James.
See, I'm trying to get a scoop on this show here. All right, well, Greg, you go back and see your family. Thanks a lot. It's always great to see you. And again, thanks for your time tonight.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Merry Christmas, Greg.
Merry.
All right. So again, I always hate pulling Greg away from his family, but he's so kind to do that. So those were the top 10. Y'all have any disagreements, any additions that we didn't hear?
No, I got to say he pegs it. He really does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I think we've all gotten to know Greg from his years at the Storm Prediction Center, and I'm hoping that he stays just as active. And again, if you go to the WCM page on the SPC website, that is just an amazing, it's a treasure trove of data that he started. I mean, it is also, I'll warn you, it's a time suck. You can spend a lot of time there, but it's a good time suck, but it's just great knowledge. And I do hope that he does continue to do conferences and do talks and do the things that he used to do when he was in Norman, because he's a great speaker and he's a very good communicator and he understands these issues and he's just a good person for the weather enterprise. So it's great to have him on the show. So
I got to say something, James, here.
Yes, go.
Just think how much we've learned about WPC in 9 months since Greg's been there. Because before Greg, did you ever hear much about it?
Well, it was a mystery. You'd see it on these maps and these products, but you didn't know anything about it. Yeah.
Right. And you go to conferences and there wouldn't be anybody speaking about what they did or anything like that. So he's already doing a fabulous job of making people aware of some of what goes into, as you like to say, making the sausage.
And I'm embarrassed to say this. I didn't know until tonight that WPC put out high risks for floods. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So now I know. And again, we've got to communicate in this business. So,
and according to Greg, when they put one out, you better darn well listen.
I'm about to say, you build an ark. That's the advice. So what we're going to do, we do have Tony Rice and the astronomy report. So we're going to pause very quickly for that. And we will come right back, and we'll maybe do some email or pics. We'll have some fun here. So don't go away. WeatherBrains rolls along. So for those watching live, Tony sent a note today. He's swamped, and he's going to get his report in later this week. So our producer, JP, will be editing this in, producer, in this little slot here. So for those people listening to the podcast, they don't know. They don't know this is happening. So we're going to start
Secrets
over.
behind the brains.
Yeah, there you go. So this is after Tony in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thanks to Tony and for all of his great reports. Tony does an email. I don't know if you guys get these, but it's fantastic.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Information on astronomy for our local market here, and it is so useful. And he's been just a great addition to the show. So we thank Tony for volunteering his time. He's probably waiting on that first big paycheck, which is kind of stuck in the mail. We're all waiting on ours, but anyway, thanks to Tony. So, and again, we typically don't do, the other things here. We could do a weather roundup. We really can't do a weather roundup because we're doing the show so far in advance. This is released in the wild on December 26th and 27th, and we're doing this on the 21st. I'm not that good. And boy, I was slammed. After the last after WeatherBrains 570, I was just slammed by a lot of people because I took it easy on Gary. See, Kevin wasn't here, and I need to be in a certain mood to really get cranky, and it usually involves being sick or tired or haven't slept for a long time. And when I get, I can be the accelerant if I have to. But, they're mad because we didn't challenge Gary on his claims of his forecast to, 180 days or whatever, being accurate.
On 2011.
Yeah. And again, what Gary needs to do and what AccuWeather needs to do is do a peer-reviewed paper on your techniques, and let's see your verification, show it to the world, and submit it to a journal. And let's get the thing published, and let's look for the world to see. I mean, anybody could get on the show here and say, I know exactly what the weather's going to be like on March 23rd, 2019. If you want to know, come see me. And then, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, it's just this. So people are mad because it didn't press him enough, but I just wasn't in the mood. It's Christmas. How can, it's a marvelous time of the year. It's just, but I got a nice email from Gary, and I think he's going to present at the broadcast conference in summer in Kansas City, where he's located, the AMS broadcast conference. So maybe he'll unveil the secret about how that sausage is made. So Aubrey.
Yes, James.
What you doing? You off next week?
No, I'm working. I'm working full normal.
Wait a minute, you're the chief. You're the number one here. You ought to be taking some time off.
But I don't have kids. First of all, so that's not, and I'd rather save my time for spring, summer, and fall.
Okay.
And I actually have a couple of big trips that I'm doing next year, so my time off is kind of limited at this point. But no, I'm working normal, and
Are you going to come see me at the NWA in Anaheim?
No, I cannot. I am going to California in September, though. For a trip, but it's not going to coincide with when is the AM or when is the NWA?
I'd have to look it up, but it's around like the 10th to the 15th or something like that of September.
September or October?
I will
September.
not. I am leaving the 8th. I think I'm going to be in LA like the 19th, 20th, at the very end of the trip. So I'm kind of in the middle of something then.
Okay. Yeah,
I want to see Brian. I want to see Brian get on the Matterhorn at Disneyland.
Hey, you pay for it, I'll do it.
I was lucky. We were very lucky that Laura and I got to go to Norfolk because it was so close. So asking 2 years in a row is a little tight for budget. So hopefully, depending on what happens, do we have an update on the following year? Maybe?
It's the 16th through the 21st.
16th through the 21st. Ooh.
Of September. Yeah, you're going to be close.
Ooh.
Mm.
Where's my bag of treats? Oh, my bag of treats is in the back. I'm gonna have to look.
I think you need to come to Kansas City in the summer, though. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be really cranky.
What are the dates on that?
It's in June. It's like the middle of June, and I'm going to. This is where I'm going to lock everybody in a padded cell, and we don't come out until we have some basic agreements on call to action statements, map colors.
Oh gosh, I want to be there for that.
Just starting.
I want to be there for that too.
Colors alone, I'll be there for that.
Oh yeah, I mean it's going to be good. But we're gonna. I have a good feeling that something good is going to come out of this thing. So I'm trying to get all my TV buddies to come to Kansas City in June. I've not been to an AMS broadcast conference since the one they did in Nashville a few years ago. But anyway, I think that'll be good. But yeah, 2017. Who knows? We need to get these 6-month forecasters on here to tell us, but like Greg says, will we have tornadoes in the spring? Yes. Will we have floods? Yes. Will there be hurricanes? Yes. Will there be extreme hot? Yes. Extreme cold? Yes. So
and droughts. Don't forget droughts.
Oh yeah, droughts. We're going to have them all. Yeah. So this is the last show of the year. We will be back on our let's say regular schedule. I think. See, Bill likes to watch football. Our guest booking officer. So he has postponed our next show until Tuesday, January 3rd. So the next show is going to be a Tuesday night special. That'll be the first week in January. So the next time we gather together here will be in 2017. So Aubrey and Brian, we're doing this before Christmas. So Merry Christmas to you, and thank you all for your support.
Merry Christmas to you guys.
Merry Christmas to you.
Very glad to be here for another year, even though it's a little changed this year.
Aubrey, you saw the gift he got, right?
No, I didn't. I missed it.
It's Dinosaurs Love Underpants.
Oh, you got it. Yes.
Yeah, you see, this is it right here, ladies and gentlemen.
Love it.
Greatest Christmas gift ever. WeatherBrains is typically on Monday nights at 9:30 Eastern. We're off schedule for a couple of weeks around the holidays here. We'll be back on the schedule in January. But our email address is email@weatherbrains.com. Well, whenever we come back in January, we'll give Aubrey 4 hours for all the email to catch up.
You got it.
Yeah, and our social media accounts are on the website, weatherbrains.com. Show notes are there as well. So thanks to you for listening and watching. We do this. It's a labor of love. We've been doing this for 11 years, and it's just great. So thanks to all. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, and God bless.
Amen.
Greg, say bye.
Thank you all. Merry Christmas.
If you need a chauffeur to drive you to Kansas City, just let me know.
Okay. You need to go up there. You need to get cranky. I need to be cranky. We'll take those jabronis on.
All right. Let me see what I can do about